Welcome back to another UNC basketball podcast here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you are watching us on our rapidly growing YouTube channel, that is called Tar Heel Illustrated, I am THI publisher Andrew Jones. And joining me is our director of basketball recruiting and analyst, Mr. David Sisk, longtime AAU college and high school coach. Before we dive into this podcast discussing UNC coach Hubert Davis, just want to remind everybody through November 9th, through midnight, the night of the opener against Loyola, we are running a special on our site. Go ahead and sign up, and you get to try us out for 30 days for free. If you've been watching our videos and you're thinking about maybe I want to go check those guys out, I want to see what that premium content's like. Well, you can do it now, and it's free. There's no strings attached. Just go on over there, sign up, check out David's stuff for a month for free, Dina's recruiting stuff. I would say probably 80% of what we post is premium stuff. So you have to be a subscriber, and you get it for free for the first month. That means the first month of the Hubert Davis era, the last month of this bizarre football season. And in there, you also have the signing day for basketball coming up, and you have football leading you right up to the football signing day in December. So it's a great time to get a chance to check us out for free with no strings attached. And if you decide that you want to be a part of THI long term, it's just $8.33 a month. So come check us out, give us a shot. And if you like it, hang out, and you can get access to David's stuff in perpetuity. And David, one of the things I really want to dive into here, we have been previewing various individual Tar Heels leading up to the beginning of the season. And I think now it's time to discuss Hubert Davis. We have done a couple of Hubert podcasts since he was hired back in April, and sort of incrementally as he was going along, sort of gauging the first 3 months and so on. But now here we are a week away from the opener. A couple of things I wanted to hit on, just to let everybody know what we're going to do. What kind of patience do fans need to show with him? As a coach, how will you monitor how he adjusts during the course of a season? If maybe he's doing something one way in November, but you see tweaks in December. And are you excited about having an opportunity to watch a first-year coach at a program that gets the kind of attention North Carolina gets? So I'm going to throw all that stuff at you, David, and I'm going to begin with the last question. Is it cool for you as a coach to have an opportunity to watch somebody who's been immersed in the sport for the last 35 years of his life have an opportunity now to not just be the head coach somewhere, but have the keys to this kind of Rolls Royce?
I'm glad you narrowed that down to one question at the end. My adult ADHD kicks in. I can't remember any other questions you had.
Yeah, we won't even get to it because I'll forget too.
I hope you wrote them down because you probably don't remember them either.
No.
But, yeah, I think we all are. I think anytime you get a new coach, you're excited to see what happens. I think Roy knew it was time, and he said he felt like he still could do a good job coaching. He just didn't feel like, he was the guy at that time in 2021 for North Carolina. So, obviously, if you feel more like Hubert Davis is the guy. He's already shown it going into the transfer portal, already done some things that, maybe Roy wasn't as comfortable with doing. We're looking at more of even playing a more new age style where you're stretching the floor a little bit. And playing a 4-out, probably more three-pointers, things of that nature. So I just think as far as just all the changes here, from Hubert's going to be his own guy, so changes into what Hubert's going to do, I think all that's exciting, just to see the change and to see how that works on North Carolina basketball. I think we all get excited by change a little bit at first, and then we see if we like it or not.
Yeah, I enjoyed covering Roy. I thought that I had a pretty good handle on the way Roy went about things, and there was a lot of comfort in knowing the program so well. So it's going to be fun and interesting for me to kind of wrap my arms around this and try to get a handle on what becomes consistent for Hubert. And we don't know that. If it was Roy and they're playing Loyola in the opener next week and Loyola's on a 10-2 run, we know Roy's going to let them play through it. Hey, you guys got yourself in this mess. You got to figure a way to get out. And he knows that by doing that, it makes them stronger, better, and more secure when they go into March. It'll be interesting to see how Hubert handles stuff like that. So I'm excited because it is new and it's different. And I do like a lot of the things that Hubert has done and said since he took the job. I also think there's some things that, okay, I'm not wrapping my arms around that just yet. I want to wait and see. And that's kind of what's fun about this, because this team right now going into the season has got a ton of storylines. But for all the neat, interesting player-related storylines there are, nothing comes close to the Hubert Davis storyline. And that's going to be something that is constant throughout the year, because players are who they are. They're going to get better. They're going to evolve. But a 51-year-old coach doing this for the first time, he's really going to evolve over the course of the season. And I think that finding those marking points might be one of the most interesting things that we as a site do, and certainly will be something you and I talk about a lot without the recorder on, and certainly at times with the recorder on.
I think any coach who has been an assistant for a while and played and been around the game, and you said it's been around the game his entire life. I mean, he's a lifer. At some point, the thought process has started, I would like to have the opportunity to be a head coach. And like you said, have the keys to it and do the things that I want to do, and just to see how they work. Hubert's got, I'm sure he's going to have his own ideas. He's going to take things that Roy Williams did, but he's going to take some other things that he sees in basketball in today's game, but probably some of his own thoughts, some of his own wrinkles, and put that in there offensively and defensively to see how it works. And I think, in fact, I'm sure he's had an itch for a good while to want to see, hey, if I ever got that opportunity, I want to see how this works. How would my ideas work? I remember when, Bob Knight, if you'll remember, when he got fired at Indiana, he had a pretty good team coming back. And one thing I remember that he said, one thing I hated about being fired was, I had some stuff offensively that I'd really kind of thought about during the offseason. I was going to try some things offensively that I'd never tried before with that team, and I really wanted to see how it worked. So, so how much more so when you get your opportunity, because I promise that this is not something when Hubert was hired, he said, oh, man, I got to sit down and put an offensive plan together. I think he already had a lot of ideas stored up in the back of his head and probably on paper of how he would go about this and what the ideas that he would implement.
Well, he was notorious when he was at ESPN. They would go to a different site every Saturday from January, February, early March, I guess, when they did the game day show. And he was at a lot of places. And he would go in and watch practice, and he would take a lot of notes. And he still has those notebooks. And everything I'd always heard from people close to Hubert or that kind of knew the situation was that he was not interested in being a head coach. But there was something there that got him to take those notes and hold on to those notes. Maybe is it a basketball junkie? I think if you're a basketball junkie at that level and you're around the sport at that level and you decide, I want to go ahead and be an assistant coach now. He had a great thing going at ESPN. That was a great gig. And as Dick Vitale says, nobody fires me for losing games. And Hubert wasn't losing games. And then when you go into an assistant coaching and spend the time he did with Roy, I would imagine, even though the people around him were saying he doesn't want to be a head coach, I agree with you. I think that had to be something that was deep inside. So when he got the job, he kind of hit the ground running. And, we thought maybe he made a mistake going after Kessler too hard, but whatever he did that first week that we thought, boy, that's kind of a rough start, he quickly made up for it. And he's shown a resilience on the recruiting trail. And I think that he has very respectfully articulated things he was going to do different than what Roy did. And I think that takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of confidence to do that, because a lot of guys that get their first head coaching jobs later in life kind of try to do what the other guy did, what their mentor did. When Bill Guthridge got the job, he tried to do what Dean did, basically. And it worked to a degree, but he wasn't Dean. And I think the great thing about Hubert that I've really appreciated so far is he said multiple times, and he did it a couple weeks ago, I'm standing 5 feet in front of him, guys, I'm Hubert. Yes, I'm North Carolina. Yes, my mentorship includes Dean Smith and Bill Guthridge and Roy Williams, but I'm Hubert. I could take all that, and I could take my Pat Riley stuff. I could take all my other associations in the NBA and make it Hubert. And I'm going to do things the way Hubert does it. He hasn't shied away from that. I think that puts him off to a good start. And that tells me that whatever problems he comes up against once the season starts, yeah, he'll call on Roy. He'll call on some of his NBA guys, but he's ultimately going to fix them the way Hubert sees fit.
And I like, too, that, he's embraced it. If you go back years ago, go back when Bear Bryant retired at Alabama, Ray Perkins came in. Of course, I don't think anybody, I don't know that Jesus could have come in after Bear Bryant and made it. But you remember the first thing he did? He took down the tower.
Yeah.
You'll remember that. He was done. I mean, when he took down the tower, it wouldn't matter how much he weighed. He might as well just quit that day. And you see on others, you'll see other programs, coaches come in and try to change. Like, for example, Rich Rodriguez going to Michigan.
Yeah.
He came in and he tried to do, I am my own man. We're not going to do things the way it's been done. And it didn't work, whereas you may have other coaches come in that did have Michigan ties who were going to try to do it that way, but they weren't their own man either. They were just a copycat. Yeah. So you can go too far in either direction. What I like about Hubert, he's being his own guy, but, he's embracing. I've seen, you hear it all the time about players who played in a program and said, we're not welcome back. There's a new coach in there, and he doesn't welcome the new, the old players.
Which is totally ridiculous, by the way,
really,
no matter where you are.
He's doing it, and I can tell you a lot of places where that's happened. But I think Hubert's a little bit of right now, it appears to be the best of both worlds. He's going to be his own man, but he's embracing the Carolina tradition, obviously, and I think you'd be crazy not to do it that way.
So how much patience should Carolina fans have? Or do you think that not will they have? Because I think if they lose to Mohegan Sun, people are going to be raining all over them. Like that's just the way fanatics are, especially around programs like North Carolina basketball, where I call it the Church of North Carolina basketball. But for you as an observer, as somebody who's got literally no emotional tie to this whatsoever, and someone who has coached for a long time and been around the sport at various different levels for a long time, how long should people expect it to take for Hubert to really kind of get all four wheels synchronized and rolling together at the same time?
I think it kind of goes with his team. I think Hubert goes as his team goes. He's got a talented team. And like I said, he's not like Steve Forbes coming into Wake Forest, where it's just, he's going to have basically a team full of walk-ons. It's not going to be anything like that. He's got talent, and there were good players coming back, but he's done a tremendous job restocking. He knew his needs. He went to the portal, got what he needed, and obviously it looks like everybody he's got coming in are going to be major, major contributors. They're in everybody's top 20. And he's not taken over a national championship team. North Carolina, last 2 or 3 years, they've struggled. And last year wasn't as bad as 2 years ago, but by North Carolina standards,
it was a bad year.
They didn't win they got to the tournament and got blown out last year in the first round by Wisconsin. So that'll work some places, but that's not UNC standards. So he's got a chance to improve on that. So I think he walked into a good situation. The timing was right. He's added to it. And I think he's got the chance. I don't think that North Carolina fans expect the national championship this year. I think eventually they'll want to see
some do
the competition for that. But I think right now, I think they want to see a team that plays hard, that plays smart, that plays unselfishly. They're going to hustle. They're going to get after loose balls. They're going to run up and down the floor. They're going to try and defend. They're going to do those things and look at him and say, yeah, we can kind of see what Hubert's doing. That there's some thought behind this. So eventually the honeymoon wears off, no matter who you are. But I think he's got a chance, just not because he's a native son, with a Carolina program, even though. He wasn't born in North Carolina, but he's got the Tar Heel pedigree through and through. But he's got the chance to really kind of elevate in year one what they've had in the past, and I think really start this thing out on a good foot. So I think if you get to the second weekend, you have to say they've made a major improvement in year one, and I think this team's got an opportunity to do that.
No doubt about that. So how important, and again, I'm asking you as a guy who observes, and I'm asking it as someone who also observes, no emotional tie here. How important is it that they have a really close game, something that, like against Purdue goes down to the wire, where we could see Hubert have to call late timeouts. We could see him try to shuffle guys in for defense, get a guy in there for offense, or get a big in there to guard an inbound pass. All the different things that we saw the Dean Smiths and Roy Williams over the world do for years, kind of see that extracted from him early. How much do you want to see that? How important do you think it is as an observer that you see that? And how important do you think it is that the fans, whether they win or lose, get to see Hubert really have to coach hard in the last minute and a half of a tight game against a good team?
Early on, I think it's important, not as I'm going to say not as much, but just as important from your failures as your successes. Yeah. I'll give you an example. Kirby Smart gets to Georgia. They had some really bad losses his first year. He lost to Vanderbilt, in year one. Lost to Georgia Tech. But I remember the Vanderbilt game. I was covering Vanderbilt for Rivals. So they're playing down there, and Vanderbilt had a pretty decent team that year. So Georgia's driving. They get a first down. They're on about the 37, 38-yard line. They got fourth and about a yard. He's got Nick Chubb, okay? So Nick Chubb's nowhere to be found on 4th and 1, and he's got like a 160-pound tailback that they move from wide receiver, and they run a student body right with him, and the Vanderbilt linebacker just kind of reaches out and just doesn't even arm tackle, just grabs him with two hands and throws him down, and Nick Chubb would still be carrying the guy, And I remember Vince Dooley said during the season, he said, look, it was a learning experience. He said it's a learning experience for him. So there's going to be some of that with Hubert Davis. There's going to be positives. There's going to be negatives. And like I said early on, I think he's not going to know. And I've heard coaches say, what are you going to do offensively? Or they say, look, we don't know. And one of the best high school coaches I was ever around, one of the smartest basketball people I was ever around, never watched film of an opponent for the first 20 games. And you would ask him, well, you play this team Friday night, what they got? He says, I have no idea. Who's the best player? I have no idea. I have no idea. He said, I'm worried about my team. He said, I don't even feel like you need to even scout the other team to get 20 games in. I want to know, I want to have full confidence in knowing my team. So Hubert will have to learn that, because you got to remember, a lot of these guys are new. You've got 3 transfers. You've got some guys maybe who you're playing in new and advanced roles. You've got 2 freshmen. So he doesn't know what he's got yet. And even strategically, I don't think they're going to be running the same. They're going to be running a bunch of offense later on in the season that they've not even thought about running now. It'll hit them as it go. Hey, this will work. Let's try this. I think this matches what we've got. So it takes time. So I think as far as the coaches go, it's the hit and miss is good both ways. But I think as far as the players go, winning cures all ill. So they need to build confidence, because I still have to think that the guys who have been here, the Baycotts and the Leaky Blacks and some of those guys, they've really seen the down times here. They saw some good but not great last year. I still think they've got to be not totally confident and a little fragile. So the more success I think the players can have more than anything, the better.
Interesting you brought that up about not worrying about the opponent for a while. And I know that Dean Smith used to just say, we're just worried about North Carolina.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see how Hubert is. And I'm going to tell you a quick story. Matt Doherty, I covered the Matt Doherty years. And one of the things I used to marvel at was after Doherty took his coat off about 2.5 minutes into the game, because he couldn't stand having the thing on, David, I swear to you, he spent so much time watching the other team's coach during the game. The plays on the court, it's going back and forth, and he's over there watching. What's he calling? What's he doing? I swear, we talk about it on press row. He was overly consumed by the idea of whatever that coach was calling, he was going to call something different to counter it. To me, I think that that's a bad sign, because you should coach your team to be able to deal with stuff and not really worry too much about what the other team is doing. Now, they might try something that you have to react to, but Roy used to react sometimes, but he usually preferred to force opponents to react to him. Will you be watching Hubert, the way he's engaged with his team early when they're on the court? If he's a guy that stands, is he an arms folded guy? Is he a guy who paces back and forth? Does he sit and watch? Does he do this a lot? Roy had a few different things that he did. He used to like to go stand in the corner of the baseline when he wasn't too sure about what his team was doing and really get an eyeful of them. Sometimes he would pound the score table, sit down. He complained to Steve Robinson for a minute and a half. When you're watching Hubert, are you going to be looking for all those kinds of things when you have a chance to see him? I know on TV, camera's not going to be on him all the time, but do you look for mannerisms like that from a coach?
Probably the only mannerism I would look to see if they're bad. There's 3 coaches that I like to watch their mannerisms. And one of them I don't like to watch. One's Tom Crean. I can't help it. And I was getting ready to say, if he doesn't walk 25 miles a game in the coach's box the way Tom Crean walks, anything but that. Don't do like Tom Crean. So that's one. But the other 2, I watch Bobby Hurley and Fran McCaffrey just simply because I want to see if they get arrested during the game.
McCaffrey. My God. That red face.
Bobby Hurley's better than McCaffrey. So those are the same way I used to like to watch Gene Katie and Bobby Knight. So, those were about the only ones, but no, not really. I mean, there's coaches. Dean Smith and Bobby Knight was the best of their times, and they couldn't have done it any differently during the game.
Yeah.
So, you look at the successful coaches now, some coach, you look at Scott Drew. It just looks like he's just the happiest guy in the world. Of course, if I had that talent, I'd be happy too. I'm trying to remember who the coach was.
All that talent in a no pressure job.
Yeah. I remember. I forget who it was they were talking about some coach always being happy and it was like Dick Vitale or somebody. And I can't remember the coach and he was talking about, well, this guy, he's just always upbeat. He's always in a good mood. And he's never down and all that stuff. And I had a buddy of mine, I had talked to him next day, and he said, yeah, if I had that talent, I'd be upbeat too. So so not really. You kind of know how he's going to react with his players. You've already said in practice, he's not going to be afraid to get in them. He'll be a player's coach, but he's going to have demands too. So really not. I probably want to watch the team more. Maybe little things that he does throughout the game. as far as on the court strategy goes. But I'm going to watch that more than mannerisms.
What is one thing, and we'll close with this, what is one thing through the first, 7 months of the Hubert Davis era that comes to mind when you say, okay, I think this is going to work? What's the one thing that just kind of stands out about him? And we obviously haven't seen his team play yet, but based on what we have seen, what you've been able to read, the vibe you've been able to get through 7 months, what's one thing that just stands out and says, you know what, this is going to work?
He's himself. And sometimes that's good. Sometimes it's bad. You know, Ed Orgeron evidently has been himself here for the last, since he's won a national championship, and that's not turned out very good. But, and I said this the last time I think we were on, you know, if you're a North Carolina fan and you see what's going on in some of these places, and you're basically like, there by the grace of God, go I. You don't have to worry about that. And, you know, we did another interview with a player, you know, they had the official visit last week, and from Jones. And, you know, his dad, they tell me the same thing. I'm like, well, what stood out? And they said, Hubert stood out. You know, and it's the same thing. Every parent tells me he's a family man. He's a good family man. And they've said, you know, we've got to have help raising our kid. When he goes off to college, we're not done being parents. We want to go somewhere where we can sleep at night knowing that he's in charge of our kids. He's helping our kids. So, you know, I can't say enough about that. And like I said, it's not like one parent or everybody tells me that. And I just think, and when you get that, you get the right kind of kids in. It's not, well, I went there because, you know, we got $100 handshake or something like that. They like him for the right reasons. And that tells me that they're going to get the right kind of kids in there. And the kids you kind of want in your program, it's going to be high character, good players, and you're not going to have issues. I think Simeon Wilcher already is a very good, you know, example of that from talking to him and his parents, just stand-up people. And it seems like everybody. My wife, in fact, when I do the interviews, we're on a speakerphone. And so I'm doing the interview, recording it. And the other night, you know, one of the parents, and he tells me, or my wife tells me rather, when they hang up, she goes, who was that? And I tell her it was a player's parent. And she says, that was a nice man. And I said, Missy, they're all, I mean, every parent I talk to of players that they've offered in this 23 and 24 class, and not saying 22 is not, but I've already started building a relationship with these parents. They're all like that. All the parents, I mean, they're just, you know, stand-up people. So I don't think you can go wrong when you do that.
I'm not going to name them because they were just regular conversations, but I could think of 4 off the top of my head, guys that played for Dean Smith, whom I spoke with at some point in time over the last 20 some odd years or whatever, who when talking about Dean, and they said one of the reasons that Dean's teams always showed up and had this amazing ability to come from behind and win games late was because those kids, the guys who played for him, they themselves did not want to disappoint him. Mm-hmm. That they had such reverence for him and that they liked him so much and that he cared so much from them. There was a true connection there that they just simply did not want to let him down. And when I read the stories that you put in admin that we run about these interviews you're doing with kids that visit, and when you're talking to the parents, I'm reading stuff about Hubert that back in 1985, Jeff Lebo's parents could have told some reporter covering North Carolina about Dean Smith. And every time I read one of those, I think more and more, I think these kids are going to play for him. I think that he may not have to yell at them to get an extra mile out of them. He has a connection that might get an extra mile out of them. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and I believe that right now, Hubert, and it's, this may not age well. Who knows how it's going to. But we're talking about what we know so far.
Yeah.
And it seems like if you take the coaches from Dean on, Dean, the really successful ones, Dean and Roy were that same. They didn't want to disappoint Roy. Kids loved him.
Yeah.
And I think this is Hubert tends to fall in that. I remember one time when Matt Doherty was still a coach, somebody had written, it was a national basketball writer, had written, Dean Smith coached like he should have been in a suit. Bill Guthrid's coached like he should have been in his pajamas. And Matt Doherty coached like he should have been wearing a uniform, and that's just kind of what their personalities. Roy coached, I don't know, he may coach like maybe he needed to be in a sweater or a golf shirt or a suit, but, he was certainly more like Roy, like you would picture a coach. And it just seems to me like Hubert kind of fits that bill too. So, guys, they're going to want to play for him.
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fascinating to chronicle this next year. Carolina fans better show some patience. He's going to do something early in the year that's like a genius move. People are going to say, oh my God, he's Dean Smith. Or he's going to do something maybe that's, oh boy, that was a mistake. And then they're going to, I don't know if this is going to work or not. I know how fans are. Let's give it some time. Let things evolve. This team has to evolve and he has to evolve and he'll do it right along with it. And I think the team will kind of help him out in some ways, David. I think he's got enough talent to pull him through some of this stuff.
And this is not football either.
No.
I always tell the kids in high school, I said, here's the good thing about losing a game in basketball. We play Tuesday, Fridays. You don't have to sit on it all week. You have a game on Tuesday, you lose, you don't have to sit on it. You got a game again Friday. And I know that's not what fans want to hear, but what I'm saying is in football, you take the season and you lose a couple of games in football early on. Well, take a look at this North Carolina team, with all the expectations they had.
Yeah.
So they lose games early on. You're halfway through the season and you're like, well, they're not going to reach the expectations we thought they were going to lose, that we thought they were going to have. You're hoping they can just go to a bowl or the best bowl they can get. What basketball is a totally different thing, man. You can get hot, and start finding it. And then toward the end of the year, you're legitimate. I remember Al McGuire's team that won a national championship that beat, North Carolina in championship game. I distinctly remember the last game of the year, they played a regular season game against Michigan. They had to win that game to get in the NCAA tournament. If they didn't win that game, they didn't get in. And guess what? They win a national championship. And we've seen teams like that, double-digit
NC State, yeah.
National champ. Well, I didn't want to mention that. But,
that's all right.
Teams win, do that. Or teams, really kind of just plod along and then get good toward the end of the year and there's always the dark horse Final Four teams every year. So, like I said, you just gotta let him coach if you and just let the team grow, let him grow. And just, that's the great thing about basketball. You can just see how if the teams get better or they get worse and what that growth is as year goes. It's always a fun thing to watch.
Absolutely. And I think one of the fun things about covering a basketball team is usually at North Carolina or when I covered Duke, the teams that have a March mission in mind incrementally get better. And as the season goes on, you could sort of partition those increments along. You don't see that as much in football, and you don't see it as much with the mediocre basketball teams. This club this year, I think we're going to have those partitions, and I believe that Hubert's going to be in concert with the team in those partitions as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. We're a week away. We're going to have the basketball, football. I got 5 games in 8 days starting Friday. with the exhibition. I got 3 basketball and 2 football. I got football next Thursday at Pittsburgh. So the overlap is here in abundance. It's a fun time of year. I don't get much sleep. I'm not home much. So my wife absolutely loves this time of year because AJ's not around as much. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. This should be a good team. We're going to do our preview of the season coming up after we watch the team play in their exhibition games Saturday night. And the next day, Dave and I will go ahead and record our season preview. We wanted to see them in action. We wanted to see some rotations, see some of the defense and all that kind of stuff before we really sunk our teeth into an actual preview of the team. But don't forget, after the game Friday night, we will have coverage of the Tar Heels. And also don't forget, you can check us out for free right now. Go over to TarHeelIllustrated.com, sign up, no strings attached, 30 days for free just to see what we're all about. And if you want to hang out for another year, it's just $8.33 a month. So come hang out and give us a shot. David Sisk is worth it. Dina King is worth it. And that's good enough for me. He's David. I'm AJ. We very much appreciate you stopping by and hanging out with us tonight. Thanks.